My life's like a movie, paparazzi picture. If it's to get rich.
So the big news is this particular episode is in partnership with our friends over at Pornhub. You know what? Yeah, go ahead.
Suck on my Pornhub.
Suck that Pornhub. There's a lot of sucking on Pornhub. But what is so cool is...
This is all squirt.
I know, because I squirted it. Shout out to Lola Jean, who just broke her own record of squirting.
She in a Guinness.
She is.
She in a Guinness.
And she beat it again.
Splash.
So, we are so excited to join forces. Royal Fetish Films and Royal Fetish Radio and Pornhub are going to be bringing you some pretty hot topics, important topics. To wherever you podcast and YouTube. And this is our first one.
Well, and Pornhub.
Oh, well, yeah, naturally. Naturally. So make sure you follow all of our channels, and we'll talk all about that later. But one of the things that I was so excited about when we sat down to talk about bringing Royal Fetish to Pornhub and why that was an important collaboration was how many women were in that room.
Word.
Right?
Yes.
I think you may have been the only male identifying person in there. Yeah, they just running shit over there.
As they should.
I know, and I'm so excited about that. So, yeah, already starting with quality programming.
So what are we diving into today?
Well, first things first is letting the listeners over at Pornhub know who we are.
Okay.
What we came to do, how we fuck shit up. And how we leave things better, honestly. And just really talking about our journey in kink, what makes us the specialists in kink, and, you know, why we have the platform we have. So who are you, and how did you get here?
Well, my name is King Noir, and I got here because B-Whore will travel. You know what I'm saying? And I am a master fetish trainer, adult educator, performer, award-winning dick slinger, cam model, director, producer, and part owner
of Royal Fetish Films.
Exactly.
You're also a musician.
I'm also that.
Father figure.
And I do some good works here and there as well.
Yeah. Lover and a fighter.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
I hang out with this guy most of the time. That's one of my main jobs. I am Jet Setting Jasmine. I'm also co-owner of Royal Fetish Films, Jet Setting Jasmine LLC, where we do sex education, entertainment, lifestyle events all over the world. I am a licensed clinical therapist, the owner and lead therapist at Blue Pearl Therapy. Also performer, director.
All of that.
Yeah. Award-winning pornographer. I am also a mother of 4 children, which I also share with this guy. So we have children aged 21, 18, 4, and 4 months.
Yeah.
Where we not only share our parenting, but allow them to share their experience, at least the older ones, of what it's like to live in a sex-positive household. We center pleasure and consent as parents, and everything else that goes with it. Yeah, so we work really hard.
Yeah, so we work with, parents on kind of like how to keep their sex lives spicy and also raise their kids in safe ways and growing up to be understanding and get rid of that shame.
Yes.
And also we do events all over the world, both kinky pop-ups, and we are going to be doing Kink in Costa Rica event. And I mean, we could keep going on with that and that, but I got a question for you. I want to know, when did you find out that you were kinky? And how was that for you?
Probably when I was like 7 or 8 and I was singing Rick James' She's a Very Freaky Girl. That girl's a super freak. And I got smacked in the mouth. I was like, I really like that song. And I don't understand why I was getting in trouble for it. No, that's just like sort of our earliest memory of like interfacing with something that was like bad, different, alternative, not acceptable, right? Because that's sort of how I categorize the way people define kink as something that's out of the what's considered acceptable, normal for the society in which you are.
Okay.
So when did I find out I was a little bit different in that area? It's probably, I would say, in high school. Is a couple of things. One, I didn't know that some of the girls were not interacting with boys the same way that I was.
They were just like saying it, but not doing it.
They weren't even saying it. It's like I was bringing things to the conversation where people were just like, where do they do that?
Oh, gotcha.
Or being with boys in intimate settings, not necessarily, like I used to like edging them, like getting them really excited and then being like, okay, we're done here. And feeling super empowered and seeing their brains like scramble, like this is so hot and also so bad at the same time. And also feeling like really empowered, and I love that. And, you know, my girlfriends would be like, so did you sleep with him? And I'm like, no, like, why would I do that? And they're like, you know, like, did he get mad? I don't know. Like, he's still calling me, you know? So I was just having like these slightly different experiences than other girls and boys my age. And I didn't know it was kink, per se. So yeah, and then, you know, fast forward, I was like, oh, that has a name for that. Oh, I was a dominatrix. Like, I should have been asking for money for some of these things. How about for you?
Around the same age. I have always been into, like, I don't know, I was trying out wax play in high school, or don't ask me where I stole some handcuffs from, but I had some, and they were official.
Yeah, you had a great adventure.
For sure. And I had a Polaroid camera, and I used to, like, with my partners at the time, like, oh, can I take a picture of you on me, and you take a picture of me on you, and all that kind of shit. And, like, I really thought that shit was just normal.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, you know, when I got older, I was, like, I've been involved in sex work since I've been 18. And, like, certain things that, you know, clients or shoots or things people were asking me to do were lining up with things that I was already into. But they would say something like, I don't know, are you into wax play? What the fuck is wax play? Oh, we're going to, you know, you're going to pour like a candle. Oh, you know, just pouring a candle on somebody. Yeah, I do that shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But, like, I didn't know all the terminology and all of these things. And also, like, at the same time, I've always, as far back as I can remember, how my relationships were and love and things like that, I've been polyamorous. And, like, same kind of thing. Like, I didn't have terms or words for it. I just knew that if my girl at the time was into somebody else, I was like, yo, go holla at them or go talk to her or holla at him or whatever. So, like, I had no idea. So then as I've gotten older, or even from when I was younger, like, you know, people would say things like, that's not normal, or that's bad, or, like, say to partners, like, he doesn't love you if he does that, or he doesn't love you if he lets you do that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, all those kind of things. So I think, like, initially my perception was like, oh, there's something off about me, or there's something wrong about the way I love or the way I like to express my sexuality. So it's been a great journey. It has been a great adventure going through all of this, because as I meet more people who are into it, or I meet more people who are into it but have not experienced it, you know, the bumps in the road that I went through, learning or experiencing or catching shit from certain people, now allows me to help guide them in a way that is, like, safer and more pleasurable and based in knowledge and experience than, you know, me just kind of walking down the path and shit.
Right. I think so much of what people think is, like, abnormal, or, like, for us to have had those moments like we're different, a lot of that comes from just absolutely no basis of education or know-how around sex for young people, you know? Like, now we have a way of providing education and even, like, sort of a grounding for us, like, is it consensual? You know, does it only involve people who can give consent and do give consent? Is it any harm to myself or to anyone else in what I'm participating in? You know, all of those kind of things that let us know that what we're doing is safe. Okay, as long as it meets those guidelines, then it's fair game.
Yeah.
And so that takes out all of the judging this activity versus that activity, where when we were growing up, it's sort of like sex was presented with this very hetero, vanilla, missionary position, you know, in this order. And then anything out of that seemed like a deviant.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you leave, just as you said, as long as you leave people who say no out of it, leave kids out of it, leave animals out of it, and people who don't have the ability to say yes or no out of it, it's consenting adults.
Right.
Do your thing. Enjoy yourself, you know. And I think the problem with education at this point is there are so many people who have so much shame who are completely hypocritical because their shame is based on some shit that they fucking do or some shit that they want to do. But then when they see somebody out there doing it, that's when they're pointing their finger,
right?
You know, and saying that this is wrong, and then trying to go out of their way to ruin the person who's doing that shit's life,
right?
You know, so I think that we are at a time where it's very important to have programs that involve sex education, not just, you know, for adults need sex education, you know, and when it comes to the debate about what kids should or should not learn, kids need to learn it from a place where their safety is considered and age appropriateness is considered. But people do have to remember, and I ask everybody who's watching or listening to think about where you learned about sex. And we do this when we go out and give lectures and talks and just speaking to people in general. And most people found out about sex not from school because their school didn't offer it.
Right.
Or they didn't get it from their parents. They got it whether it be from like fucking Skinamax or, you know, porn magazines if they're old enough for that, or searching the internet, or all these other things that if there was a comprehensive education in place, when they get to those things that are inappropriate for children, they would know this ain't their place. This isn't a place for them.
And I think, you know, when it's kind of bringing it back to kink, I see that with adults as well. It's like there's nothing helping us to lead up to other ways of sexual expression, that when we do see something that is different and exciting, we tend to suppress that exploration of it, or we're afraid of what the next steps are, how to approach it, how to bring it to our partners, or how to actualize it. So we start to do that kink shaming thing, you know.
Kink shaming, or motherfuckers get silly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Have an inappropriate.
They can't have a conversation that is, and it's okay to not be into some things. Like, I guarantee in this room, there are 3 of us, 2 on camera, 1 off camera. We all have things that we are into, and each of us are into something that the other one of us is like, nah, I'm good.
The cameraman from Jump is like, nah, like, no, don't bring me into this shit. I'm just here to press record.
Nah, but I think, but I mean, like in general, you know, it's okay to not be into some shit.
Absolutely.
And it's also okay to be into some shit and keep that shit away from other people. You know, it doesn't all have to be out on Front Street,
right? But
it doesn't mean that just because your shit might not be out on Front Street that you got to shame other people for theirs.
Word. So I know that, you know, since we are representing Royal Fetish Films, where there's a lot of kinky shit on there.
It's wild kinky there.
And Pornhub, there's some really kinky shit on there. All the good stuff, right? What is something that you saw in your adult years perusing these kinky places and spaces, whether it was online or, you know, in person, that you were like, wow, that's a kink that's different. That's something that's different. I want to know more about it. It blew your mind, and you've explored it maybe, or you're interested in exploring. Like, let's let people hear how you could see something and like safely engage in it.
All right, so this is recent.
Sure, whatever. We're just like 18 and up. Like, let's keep it.
Yo, the one thing that always comes to mind for some reason, and it's across the board for me, is furries.
Ah, yeah.
It's
tell people.
Okay, so furries is people who dress in like animal costumes and have sex. And the first time I saw that shit was on this TV show. I can't even remember what it was. It was like some shit on Comedy Central. And the thing is, they used to do it in a way that I would say is not okay. Like, they would do it like weirdly, like two people in like a squirrel costume fucking in the movies.
Okay.
And people would come in and be like, what the fuck is going on? And they did it as a joke. But that's kind of like going back to what I was saying. Like, you know, it's non-consensual. But then it made me like, I didn't know that that was a thing. I thought that they just did it on this program as like a joke.
Okay.
And then from going to like FetCon and some different other events and seeing people not dressed up in like a cosplay that I would think is like, you know, like you see people dressed as like Harley Quinn or someone from 300 and shit. And you're like, okay, I can see why that's your cosplay.
Yeah.
But then you see someone in like a chipmunk suit. And I'm like,
yeah, looking for the sexy in it.
Yeah. And it's, but then like people saying like for some, it's like doing this animalistic behavior. Like I've always loved wolves. So I'm like, yeah, I can see, you know, like being a wolf or something like that. And someone else cosplaying as a wolf and like we have a wolf sex.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can see that. But it's something I haven't really like fully jumped into yet that I've always been interested in it though.
Okay. Should we be working on making that happen?
I don't see why not.
Okay. Okay, help me help him make this happen because that's not a world I'm into. Except for the one time that I was twerking with a bear when I went to get my hair cut in Atlanta.
You were like with Dancing Bear?
Well, there was a bear at the salon, and I just am now thinking, why was there a bear at the salon? Dancing
Bear is another one. Dancing Bear, I used to fuck with the Dancing Bear videos because I used to, being that I used to dance at parties and shit like that. You know, the Dancing Bear was like they would have the bear head, and then the dude would come out and it would be all these women and they would act like it was a bachelorette party, but he would actually fuck some of the women there. So I'm thinking like it was like plants.
Oh,
but like they would have some people that were just there as voyeurs or whatever, and then they would just go in and like fuck in front of the group, and I was just like, I want that in my life.
Yeah, if they're kind of like furries, but they couldn't afford the whole costume.
But I feel like also at that time was when all that like graduation and all that stuff was coming out from Kanye, and he had the bear head. Yeah. So I think like people were like, yeah, you could just rock the head and not the.
Okay, well this bear had the whole ensemble, and we were dancing and twerking. I don't know, but it was fun. That's dope. Yeah, it was fun. So I guess help us actualize this fantasy.
if you are in that world, because that's the other thing. I haven't met somebody that's in that world, and I wouldn't want to do it a disservice.
Yeah.
You know, like same kind of thing. Like I'm interested in cosplay, but I don't really know.
Let me tell you how King cosplays. He dresses me up. Evidence by my camo and my custom Nikes.
There you go.
I love it.
Okay, I'm gonna keep doing it then.
Good. That's exciting.
What about you?
So to answer my own question, something that I came across, there's like two things that come to mind. One is on the internet, I have finally gotten to like an age where I was comfortable watching porn for me, and also like having like alone time in my own bedroom where, you know, I had like that privacy, which I think is super important in our own sexual exploration, is to have like cut out or space to explore. I think that's oftentimes something that people don't consider enough is like, yeah, we have all these like desires and things, but are you really making time to explore them? So I was watching this, like somehow, you know, how you like click enough times, you'll get to some shit that you just didn't know existed. And it was a dominatrix, and they're submissive. And it was like a whole, like snowball. Now I know what it is. But like, he came in her mouth, and then she spit it back in his mouth. And then like she did some other things. And so she made him hold it in his mouth. and then he spit it back in hers, and then she like spit it back in his and like all over his face. And I was just like, like, you could do that? Like, you could do that when you're not like fighting someone. Like, you could do that. Like, it was not torturous.
What fight you been in with someone just spit cum in somebody's mouth?
I'm from Far Rockaway, New York.
That's some mad New York shit. Did they just run up and spit cum in his face?
That's so disrespectful. I've been holding this fucking cum
on the subway.
Yeah.
If you just be like, y'all seen it happen on the subway, New Yorkers be like,
yeah, that's
I could
probably
imagine that. It's possible.
No, but like just spitting in itself is,
Yeah.
you know, being a sign, like being a sign, especially for us culturally, is completely disrespectful. Now you're talking about coming and holding it and then giving it back to me and then me giving it back. Like, it was just so mind blowing that this could be done. It could be filmed and I could watch it. And I was really turned on by her dominance. I was turned on by her filthiness of, you know, like not only like receiving the cum, but giving back and then receiving again. Like those exchanges several times were just like, oh my gosh, she's so nasty. I don't know who this person is, because this is before we got into the industry. And so it just sort of let me know that people have limits beyond why are you smiling like that?
Because I'm remembering a conversation that we had where I don't even know how we got into this conversation, but so I used to be really flexible, y'all. And I used to be able to suck my own dick. And we got in this conversation where you were just like, I was telling you like, yeah, I used to suck my own dick, and I used to like come on myself and all this other shit, and you're like, I would like to see that.
Don't mind if I do.
But that's what makes me think of, because it was just kind of like in the moment, like this light went off in your head, like
that's like that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So okay,
yeah,
okay,
that's where that comes from. Yeah. So that's a particular kink that really, like, yes, the light bulb went off. That you know, whatever I can imagine, like there's more, and there is someone that will go that length with me. I just have to find them, and I have over the course of our career. I've had a lot of fucking kinky people. And then the second one was sounding. You know, that was introduced to me by a submissive. Shout out to Dirk in Germany, who was like, "Yeah, you could put these rods in my dick." And I was just like, "This me." You want me to do that? And it took like all of my background of working in like hospitals and sterile situations, and then like our kink and porn, and like it just put those things together. And how like delicate these kinks, you know, how careful you have to be when kinky. Like it had to be a sterile situation, and I had to take direction from him to not injure him. And I was actually doing the insertion of something versus, you know, being penetrated. So yeah,
I remember that conversation too. At first,
You've
I was
been
like,
there.
Not me. Oh yeah, I'll film it.
Like I'll get in there.
Yo, there's something about that. Like I remember, I had an ex who was like, "I want to like lick your dick hole." I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." I did not like it.
No.
And I like a lot of things, but that, like, the sensation of that just made me like, nope. No catheter for me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So
See, it's
like,
different when, I guess, you know, when it's a medical procedure versus it's a...
just things going into my dick hole, it's just not the business.
I've had a catheter before, and I can't find a point where I'm like, I could see how that, no, not for me.
But filming it, I was just like, I'm going to get a real good angle on this, though.
Doing it feels so like you feel so, I felt so powerful, and also like so liable, and you know it's just,
someone dick hole in your hands.
I know, yeah, this is really exciting. But yeah, those are some of the fun kinks that that I've experienced as an adult, like seeing it and then being able to actually bring it into our work. And
you know, another one that was like that for me was zippering. So zippering is when you get like a clothespins, or you know, I guess you could use anything that really like catches the skin in that way, and they're connected by a line, and you just zip them off of somebody.
And you do that to the thighs of Caliente.
Yeah. But that one was so funny because I literally was saying the day before, I want to zipper somebody.
Yeah.
And then I talked to her about what she was interested in for the scene. And she was like, I'm into zippering. I was like, oh. Well, actually, no, I didn't even say zippering. I didn't know that was the word for it. I was like, I want to clothespin somebody and rip it off. She was like, that's how I'll be learning all the terminology and shit.
So that that really raises such a good point. Now, in our community of BDSM and kink and living the lifestyle of kinksters, which many people do, I think we all have in our sexual toolbox some kink, and anything could be considered
everybody,
kinky, right?
Everybody is kinky or has a fetish in some sort of way.
In their own way. There are some of us who really hone that as part of our identity. And so I like to think of those people as like either professional kinksters or lifestylers, that sort of differentiate their personal identity than other folks do with their kink. And there's sort of like this respectability politics and hierarchy in that lifestyle. Like you have to know every word, right?
There's so many different things, so many different words we should all be happy to learn from and educate each other to elevate one another.
Mm-hmm. And so I want our listeners to know, like, please don't let some of these technical terms or tools keep you away from expressing and exploring your kink. Definitely, if you can get more information and education, like, why not, right? Like, that's super important. It's just going to make you have a much better time and also help people trust you to do those things. Mm-hmm. But don't let it stop you if you don't feel like you know every single word. Like, you can say, like, I want to use this and this on you.
And you'll run into a Callie who's like, that's my shit.
Yeah,
this is what it's called. You know what I'm saying? And also, as long as you're doing it safely, mm-hmm. right? Sometimes there's terminology for things that vary.
Right.
It'd be the same shit with a different term that somebody else uses in a different place, mm-hmm. and that's fine. But, you're not dunking on somebody if you're telling them, oh, well, this is called this, and then, that's...
Don't be kink-splaining.
Yeah. And it's also okay to say, no matter what your level of knowledge is, like, oh, I don't know that, or I need mm-hmm. to learn more about that, because that's what makes you a better practitioner, or whether it be professionally or just in your own personal life.
So we've been doing this for all of our all of our adult lives, at least. Now, kind of like looking back at it. What would you say your we talked about some extreme things, but what's something that is like on the surface that you would consider a kink of yours that like people are like, oh, like that's kinky? That's considered kinky?
Exhibitionism.
You took my answer.
Because I've always been an exhibitionist, like not even just sexually.
Explain what it is, Mr.
I like being watched.
Yeah, there you go.
And even outside of sex, like I'm an artist, I'm a performer. I love being on stage. There is no high better than performing music in front of a crowd for me. Mm-hmm. And sex is the same thing. Like I was just talking about that the other day. Like I enjoy going to like sex clubs and, like swingers or sex resorts and things like that. And because I know people are there for the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So mm-hmm. it's like I can be completely like I could just walk around bucket naked, mm-hmm. And just fuck in a spot. And if a crowd forms, or if it's a spot where everybody's fucking, and then they could, like that shit is like such an incredible turn on. Like I build off that energy. It inspires me. Like I love it. But a lot of people like being watched, or a lot of people like watching. So then they were like, oh, that would be considered a kink? like, mm-hmm. Yes, that's mm-hmm. one of the biggest fetishes out there. Well, voyeur or exhibitionism together.
Right.
There.
So when you're watching your porn, on Pornhub or Royal Fetish Film, you can consider yourself a voyeur.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So for me, not like a low.
A common.
Thank you.
This was he's gonna get into that low level nut.
Yeah, it was. That's for another episode. Would be like my fetish for noses. Like,
Okay.
so finding a particular body part that you are very, very drawn to. And for me, it is men with good noses. You have a good nose.
Thank you.
Interesting nose. Like, it's like a prominent nose. And so I'd look at it like a small penis that I can ride.
That's what it is? You like to ride noses?
Well, I mean, it gets, like, I started thinking about, like, oh, like, he has such a beautiful face. What makes his face beautiful? Oh, I like the way, like, his nose, like, it stands out. Strong nose. Strong face.
Right.
What would I do with that? Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
It's just like a, but.
Perfect face to sit on.
Perfect face to sit on. Such a throne. So I think, like, yeah, a lot of people just think, like, oh, I'm attracted to. But if you get sort of sexual arousal by it, then you can start getting into the fetishization of different parts of the body.
Eyes for me.
Yeah? What do you think? What is your slippery slope thought with those eyes?
What someone's thinking, like what's behind them, especially if it's like those looks that someone will give you. That's like, is it an inviting look? Is it like a naughty look? And then also just depth. Like there's a certain depth, but personally, like just before I even get into the depth of it, it's like a certain shape of eye to me, like, you know, like the almond eye, or, you know, like just different, you know, like different shapes of eyes. They have like that, what people would consider like that bedroom quality. It's like, I would kind of how you're talking about, you know, looking at someone's face and wanting to ride it. It's like, I would love to have those eyes looking into mine when we're fucking, or when she's sucking my dick or something like that.
When you're spitting cum in her mouth. Yes. So, let's wrap this up.
Oh, shit. We got things to do.
We do. I hope our new fans over at Pornhub and our old fans over at Pornhub, we've been on there for a minute, are enjoying having us in this capacity on the Pornhub platform and know a little bit more about what King Noir, Royal Fetish Films, and Jet Setting Jasmine have to offer.
Yes, we are going to be getting into discussions that range from porn to politics, everything in between, because there is a whole lot of politics in all these things.
Absolutely.
But we're going to be, you know, having some guests, talking about some scenes, you know, and we are going to be opening up to questions from fans as well. So, you know, post down in the comments different. If you have particular questions for the team, for each of us individually, put them shits in the comments and let us know. So, because we want to hear from you.
Yes, and make
kinky motherfuckers.
Make sure you go over to our Pornhub channel, Royal Fetish XXX. Take a look at some of our scenes, music videos, and obviously this podcast. Like it, subscribe, and share wherever it's safe to. Don't lose your account on our behalf.
Word.
All right, and see you next episode.
Later, yo.
Royal Fetish.
My life's like a movie, paparazzi picture. If it's to get richer, then I'll probably get